We are live. Good morning, everyone. We're going to give everybody a minute or so to get settled. It's about a minute before 10 o'clock. This is a reminder. We are recording this webinar for later consumption on our websites. It's on our YouTube channel. It'll be on Facebook and on hub.wahospitality.org. Thank you to our sponsors, IBA, for helping us put this webinar on today. And finally, if you guys have any questions during this webinar, go ahead and click on the Q&A button and we can type your questions in and we can answer them live on air. And thanks so much. We will go ahead and shoot it over to Anthony and Lex.
Hey, Lisa, thank you very much. The good news is it's sunny out today. We'll take that here on March 3rd. And maybe that will be the sign of spring is coming and we can get everyone to get things open and right. We can come back out and start moving again. Let's just be positive for a half a minute. Lot of activity again since last month. So I'm looking forward to kind of covering it broadly and Lex, you and I having a good conversation about what's going on in the industry and talking about it from there. I have learned my lesson. Too many of you have my cell phones and start texting me questions. So I didn't even bring it into the booth with me today. So if you're wanting to ask a question, we are forcing you to put it into the chat because I'm not even going to see what your question was until I get out of here this afternoon. I want to cover 4 things in general today. Well, 5. What's happened so far in the early session agenda, what our focuses are going to be the remainder of this session. Make sure you're aware of some of the information that's out there that can help you and the relief programs that are out there and can help you. And then, of course, the elephant in the room, none of that really matters if we're not reopened. And we have got to get people to 50%. So those are the conversations I really would like to talk about today, and we will go from there. Lexi, that makes sense. And my dusting off the cobwebs and getting us rolling today. Does that sound the clarity on what we want to cover?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of our members are going to have some great questions for us today because there's been a lot of development since the last podcast and some amazing moves from the legislative team. And so but also some challenges. And so I think I encourage our members who are watching right now to submit those questions. And Lisa, you'll go through those and we'll ask those throughout the podcast today.
Well, let's start with some of the positive news, right? And that would be our earliest session agenda. I think if you've listened to the podcast in the last couple times, I said this year is really weird in that there's two sessions, the early session and the later session. And there is a lot of stuff that we needed to get past early in the session and was high priority for us. And the good news is almost our entire earliest session agenda has now passed and been signed by the Gov or on the way to being signed by the Gov. So the UI bill passed. I believe many of you have already received your notices this week, so you can dramatically see the savings of Julia's incredible work. If you run into Julia in the upcoming year when we're open, buy her a glass of wine because she has earned it. She was the lead on the business community. She was a bulldog on making sure that people realize this had to pass now. People could not reopen and have this kind of tax burden hit them. And she was nothing short of amazing on this UI bill. So huge kudos to Julia. And again, you'll see exactly by how much as you get your UI notices this week. In fact, if you even want to type in the chat how much you've saved, we had one regional restaurant let us know they saved over $350,000 from that bill. And that's the kind of savings we're talking about. We also have passed the relief package for small businesses, which will provide $240 million in additional grants to businesses that have lost from 19 to 20. And those will be occurring, and I'll talk about that more later, but big bill, particularly when the legislature was out of money, for them still to put together that kind of funding is good news. Also passed is that we are waiving liquor license fees for the upcoming year. So for those of you with a liquor license, beginning March, whenever your liquor license comes up, your liquor license fees will be waived for 1 year. In addition, we have clarified that there'll be no state taxes on any of the relief funds you've seen. We've had some different auditors and other people give confusing advice out there, so we've got that clarified. That's out of the way. And the last bill is moving, but we needed to move and get the rest of the way there, is a property tax relief bill. Huge bill to people who, to a lot of folks, anyone who pays a triple net and or owns their building. That property tax relief bill is moving. We do have support for it, but we do need to get it through the process so the auditors can get it and get you back out your new property tax notices in this first quarter. So there is some urgency to that bill. Nothing I'm worried about. It's just moving a little slower because some of the legal technicalities and a lot of the local input that's gone into that bill. We got a scare in that we thought our pop syrup tax, a Seattle style pop syrup tax, was going to occur in this early session. And the bill suddenly had momentum. And thank you to the work of our government affairs team, but also to all of you who answered the grassroots call. We provided a tremendous amount of input back to the legislature, and we're able to secure the votes to stop that bill in its tracks. And so I've been around enough years to know that until the legislature goes home, never call a bill dead. You'll live to regret it. But certainly the momentum of that bill has stopped, and we're feeling much better that it's a bill that won't move forward. It would have increased your pop syrup taxes incredibly, and without any of the other kind of relief that has been held with other pop syrup tax. So glad that that one's on hold at this time. Lex, I'm trying to go fast we allow for questions. In my speed to get that information out there, is there anything that I bobbled the explanation of, or could use some additional clarity?
No, I think one thing would be helpful would be maybe explaining the conundrum that the industry was in with the unemployment insurance and how much of a disaster we really averted with that move.
Well, yeah, I mean, people were looking at a 400% increase on their unemployment insurance taxes. And it was incredible. I mean, the system was working like the system was intended, in that when you have people who have work experience with you, they become separated from you, we recoup those taxes, both through socialized and otherwise. So this fund stays whole. But the system wasn't designed to be a pandemic relief bill for employees. And that was an incredible bum rush on the system. So the automatic controls were kicking in to say, wow, this much money came out. These are what has to get redone. And for our industry, we are very sensitive to the socialized tax. And if you're really low and you've never laid anybody off for the last 5 years, your experience rating is going to go from rate class 1 or 2 to rate class 15, 18, 19, 20 real quickly. Because you were paying so low taxes, you were not reflective of the experience you're putting on the system. So I don't want to get into a UI nerd moment, because I can do that, but the bill was intended to relieve people from that impact and relieve them from that piece of it. I also want to say that is good for right now, but that experience was cut off in July 1. So we're going to have to go through this again next year, because all the experience that occurred between July 1 of this year and through June 30th of next year will reflect on next year's taxes. And so we're going to have to have a second bite at this apple, but a huge initial bullet dodged. And we're very excited that we were able to get the bill through.
Right, that's good clarification, because we did have some members who received some awfully big bills and they don't have to pay those anymore, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, the initial round, I don't know if anybody has put anything in chat about how much they've seen decrease in their notices, but yeah, it was huge. So bringing it back down to honestly a modest 15 to 20% increase, which is weird when you say 15 to 20%, but when you're talking about 400%, it's a big drop. Any other questions on the early session bills?
We have two questions in the chat. The first is, they've already paid their liquor license bill. Can they use it for next year, or should they request a refund?
The waive is for 1 calendar year. So if it was on February 20th, you could talk to our team and see if you could take a shot at say, hey, I want to waive this. Hey, I was off by 2 days. So for Chris, can we put an email in in fact, we wanted to say this anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, can you email the email we're going to drop here in the box, and we can put you in touch with our liquor license expert. You're right on that edge where I don't want to tell you no, but I can't tell you yes. And so we'll try to follow up from there. But if you do miss it now, it means next February, you wouldn't have to pay. So it's basically a 1-year relief. Any other questions, Lisa?
Yeah, there's one more. I believe this is any talk of getting the state out of the workers' comp program.
Privatizing workers' comp? No. And I don't mean to be blunt or rude on it. I'm just trying to be really honest and direct. The makeup of this, the influence that the labor community has, you really need a more balanced state to have those kind of conversations, and that's just not where Washington is.
All right, and those are all the questions we have so far. If you want to go ahead and move forward.
So, hey, session's not over. Believe it or not, we're only a third of the way into it, and we still have 2/3 to go, and our work is not done. We have 4 major priorities, and I'm going to cover those real quick. We have a B&O tax relief bill, which would reduce hospitality's B&O tax rates by 30%. That bill is moving forward. We have broad support on that bill because of the impact we've had on hospitality. And we're hopeful that bill's moving forward. There's a really weird situation with Seattle hotels, and I don't want to bore anyone who's not a Seattle hotel, but Seattle auditors gave them a weird ruling that their tourism fees were subject to sales tax, meaning the fees that they paid on for their hotel taxes. And so the bill to clarify that and remove that burden and going back is going really well. It got introduced quickly, got broad support quickly, and is moving through the legislature. So we're very hopeful that bill will happen. Yes, House Bill 1512 is that bill number. We're also feeling very positive about our liquor to go bills. They're both moving forward, 1480 and 5417. If they both pass, there'll be a kind of a handshake agreement of does the House or the Senate finish the bill off, and what do the changes have to be? And we are getting good indications from people who are traditionally not supportive of state-funded tourism that we have a chance to get our $12 million request in tourism funding. So those are our major proactive priorities for the remainder of session. A bunch of ones that are smaller that we're also working on. I think our legislative team is tracking actively about 450 bills, everything from amendments to otherwise. And of course, we're trying to make sure nothing bad happens. So those are the proactives, but there's another probably 25 to 30 active bills we're actively concerned about, we're also working on. So that kind of concludes that second part of my agenda, Lex. And again, I'm trying to keep the pace up because I know that people are, don't want to give too much of their time. Did I blow any of that explanation? And then Lisa, after that, are there any questions on focuses for the remainder of session?
No, there's nothing there. Maybe one question that would be, a lot of our members will be interested. Does it look like there might be some more relief packages from the state level that might be getting pushed through at some point?
I think the B&O tax relief bill is one that's intended to be a relief bill. Depending on what passes this week or the next 2 weeks in Congress, if there's a bunch of new federal bills, that might reopen the conversation for additional concepts for state relief. A lot of people would like to buy down the UI taxes now meaning buy off the experience rating that's been building up since July of 2020 and will build up through June of 21. So we don't have to come back next year. And a lot of people will be looking at that. If there's enough state funding, can we just dump that into the UI system? And that'll be a conversation that will be had. Where it will go, we don't even know what kind of state funding is going to be occurring yet. So it's projecting into a pretty cloudy future. But I think that's probably going to be it from the state legislature. They are in a deficit. And I think that'll be, as far as pure relief, that'll be probably the bulk of that conversation. Anything else on the remainder of the legislative session?
We do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Can you high level explain the grant from the state for 75,000 and the prior grant deduction for that math? Yeah,
I'm going to give a really high level because like Commerce is going to issue clarifications, Department of Commerce, in the next 10 days. And you know what? I'm going to talk about this under the relief program. So Lisa, let me do that in the next piece. I will tell you, if anyone on the call is not getting the Legislative Weekly, it updates you every week what's going on and where your phone calls can be the most helpful. So if you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Anthony, I've never seen the Legislative Weekly updates. Again, email that podcast at wahospitality.org, and Lisa will capture that, get it off to the people who get you on the list. It comes out every Friday. It updates you on all the activities for the week and our priorities for the upcoming week, and where a phone call might do the most good to support the industry. So with that, I'm going to move into relief packages. The Triple P is out there. I hope everyone is actively working on their applications. There was a pause for medium and larger businesses. That shouldn't be a reason for concern. Hopefully it just gives you the time to get your application together. But when that pause is undone, I hope you're already in the bank saying here, because I want to make sure that everyone in the industry moves. So we are famous for procrastinating. For an industry that depends on reservations and being ahead of things, on these kind of deadlines, we seem to always wait till the end. I'm encouraging people to be ready because there will be a point where they could run out of funding. So be aware of that. And hopefully, if you need any help, Lex, didn't Rick Braw do a really good Triple P explanation podcast?
Yes, and that's available on our YouTube channel, and you could also find it on our coronavirus resource guide.
And I think you also broke that into sections if they had specific questions, didn't you?
Yeah, we divided it by an update on PPP and the employee retention credit. We also divided it. He discussed the $25 billion restaurant revitalization package as well. And there was a segment also on just answering a lot of folks' questions.
Yeah. So check that out. If you can't find anything else, we do have a consulting network here to help you, and we do have experts and contacts. And look, Lisa has a cat. So we're sorry, Lisa's cat's walking across the screen in case you're listening in your car on the way home tonight, and we go from there. There's a question about how do I get the weekly calls? I'm guessing that's the GA calls. Every member of the association is welcome to join GAC. They have weekly calls. So again, email the podcast at wahospitality.org and say, I'd like to get involved in government affairs, or I'd like to get the government affairs weekly email. I don't have time for the weekly calls. We take our orders from you. And that's one of the things I'm really proud of. One of our members is giving me crap of if I listen to this on the way home. I know the podcast actually has about 4 times the number of listeners after the live cast. And so that's what I'm referring to. For the rest of you who thought I've lost my mind, I may have, but that's not why. With that, I want to move on to relief programs, which we talked about Triple P. I'm really worried that a lot of the industry is sleeping on the employee tax credit, that $5,000 per employee. When I talk to the average operator, I feel like they're all hearing it for the first time. Go watch Rick Braw's section on that. It's sneaky good. And I would really hate that you would miss out on that just because you didn't know what it was or it didn't catch your radar. Everyone talks about Triple P, and they should. It's a good program. I'm just worried that some of you are sleeping on the other piece. Lex, to get to your point, or Lisa, I promised I'd come back to the $240 million grant from the state. So that is part of the relief package that we said passed in our early agenda. We are talking to Commerce just about every day now. Our industry is expected to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, benefactor of that 240 million. It's not exclusive for us, but we have the most businesses that are down. So what I can tell you is the Department of Commerce is putting together its operational and communication plan right now. We're frustrated with the software and the online program they used for the $100 million grant back in December, and they realized many of you had problems with it. So they're trying to get a new program online beforehand that will fix many of the problems that many of you had. And that's why we don't know the details, is because they don't know if they're going to get that program, if that program is going to be live. What we do know is that our membership team, so your territory manager, you might know them as an area coordinator or your member services rep, but the regional person in your area is going to be trained to be educated to help you execute this. And so we've already met with Department of Commerce. We're already setting up conversations. And so they're hopefully going to contact you the week or two before it gets open to tell you what documents need to get ready. You are going to have to upload a document. If you're worried that's not your expertise, they can talk about how to get you help or support you. So if you're not on a first name basis with your membership rep, again, put in the chat, I would love to meet my membership rep, and we'll have them give you a call, because we're really setting that up to do about 50 hours a week for 4 weeks in a row of just making sure all of our industry connects to that grant when it comes out. The grant is supposed to be capped at $70,000 per entity. I almost wish they hadn't said that, because that's like telling someone you can dunk a basketball, but you're only 4'2". It's just not going to happen. The amount of people who need the grant and that will qualify for the grant is going to make 70,000 really unlikely. I think if I'm trying to build a business plan, I think probably around 20,000 is more likely. The good news is the 70,000 gives you room that if you've received prior CARES Act, prior grants from Department of Commerce, doesn't include Triple P, doesn't include local grants you may have received from your county, but prior Department of Commerce grants, they have to be deducted from your max to receive. So let's pretend you received one of the ethnic business grants, the $12,000 grant from Commerce early, and then the small business grant from the summer. And so you've already received, let's say, $23,000 in grants from Commerce. That would be deducted from your eligibility of 70, but it doesn't make you ineligible to get the grant. And again, I don't think anyone's going to get 70. I think from what I've seen from the early structure, I think 20 is probably a more realistic expectation of what that grant might provide. They want to do it quickly. They want to get the money out there quickly. They also don't want to be in the middle of what I'm about to talk about next, which is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. They don't want people to get so confused of which grant they're applying for that they don't apply for this money and get the help. So they're waiting a little bit to see when are the feds going to come online and make the Restaurant Revitalization Fund available. And so they're not in that same time frame as that fund. That fund is $25 billion. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund is a mutant child of the Restaurants Act, which was hundreds of billions originally. This number is what the national organizations are calling a down payment on what they want to come back to. And $25 billion, this is specifically restaurants. So while the Commerce Grant is anyone who's down, the Restaurant Revitalization Act is just restaurants. So if you have to have some kind of connection to a restaurant NAICS code ultimately to be able to apply. So if you're a hotelier and you've got a broken out business with a 722 NAICS, that'll more the rules aren't out, but I would guess you'd be okay. But if you're all under one umbrella and you're all under an entertainment or lodging, this is probably not one you're going to apply for. It won't be designated out that each state gets a pro rata amount. But if everyone leaves the starting line at the same time, it'll probably come out that way, which means that'd be about $625 million in grants to Washington restaurants. There's a lot of details on that. The National Restaurant Association is doing a big webinar on that tomorrow that will then be repeated. And Lisa, if you can drop the information on that webinar in the chat room, there's enough detail on that where I can spend the whole 30 minutes of this podcast talking about that. I really want to make you aware of it. I really want to get it on your radar screen, and whoever is the person who's doing this for you, make sure that they're adding this to their checklist box, because this will be up there in what we're eligible for the restaurant side. With that, again, I'm trying to keep us on track for timing and respect people's time. Lex, did I blow any explanation that people should be aware of?
How likely is that to happen, that we're going to have additional assistance?
If you ever doubted the value that AHLA and the National Restaurant Association co-membership was bringing to you, stop, because they've been incredible on this. They were incredible on the 3.5 times for hospitality in Triple P. A lot of what they've done is just flat out amazing. So based on the work I've seen them already do, I wouldn't count them out. They are really delivering on the value and why we're co-members with them. So big thanks to the national GA teams of both those groups. That being said, it will be a challenge for them. So if I'm trying to build a business model, how much would I count on additional funding for my future business model? I probably would not. But does that not mean it wouldn't be really helpful and we shouldn't fight for it and we shouldn't do grassroots? No, we should fight for it. We should do grassroots. And if there's a window that opens, we should continue to work for the full Restaurant Act. Does that answer the question?
Yep.
So last I want to give before I get into reopening, which is probably what you're all hanging on here for, where are we at with that one? I do want to do a quick shout out on our information side. We do have a new toolkit for lodging security. There's been a lot of security issues around lodging. And so our team has worked with different safety experts and lodging experts to put together a toolkit that will hopefully guide you through these times. You can find that in our website. You should have also all received your posters. If you didn't get your posters, contact us and let us know what's going on. That's the first one is free with your membership. The Hero Manual is up, which is the Excellent Restaurant Operations Guide. It's updated annually. So we're not mailing out a hard copy anymore because apparently we're out of the 1980s and we're now in a modern era where everyone wants it online. But it does mean you have to remember that it's there. And as we talk about reopening, please be safe. We are doing everything we can to get us open. But I'll be honest, the health officials do not want us open. And if we give them a bunch of excuses when we get open, that's just going to feed their natural fears. And so we really have an obligation to deliver at a high level, to keep the masks are important, to deliver on the food safety and the customer guest safety and taking care of our guests in the way we all know how. And so with that, I've asked the communications team to move these opening safely guides back to the top of the list by this afternoon. So this afternoon, if you go to our website, please check those out. Please develop checklists as we reopen and make sure that we are delivering so we don't give anyone an excuse to get gains taken away from us. With that, let's talk about reopening.
We do have 2 quick questions before you get to that.
Yeah.
Remind me again the amount that may be issued by the RRF.
You mean what each individual might be available for? Is that how you read that question?
That's how I read it, yes.
I'm going to say a number and everyone's going to be like, sweet, I have it. So the cap in the bill is $5 million per location. But if you do quick math, there's not, right? If we get 625 million, you divide that back out. There's not going to be that much money there. So the cap is 5 million. I think before we even per location, and 10 million per business entity. I wouldn't get excited until we see how they develop the rules. Then I would say that's a number I'd get more certain about, because that's just 5 million out of 625. Who's the fastest person here? That's 100 and that's 600. That's not even that. 310 restaurants would be eligible for that, right? That's actually, I did screw that math up too. So 125. That's the number I was looking for. Well, there's 14,000 restaurants that need help. So I can't imagine the 5 million is going to stick, because there's just not enough money to go around.
Right. And I think the other one was a comment about, I'm thinking unemployment rates dropped from 2.49 to 0.36.
Oh, they're letting us know what they dropped. That's good. From 2.49 to 3.6?
2.49 to 3.6, 0.36.
Oh, well, that's good. I don't even need a calculator to know that's great. That's great news. So congratulations to you, and hopefully all of you are seeing similarly great numbers in your unemployment insurance numbers. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be. I always want to take UI unemployment can be managed, right? They're people too. So I always make sure you're watching that fund and who's applied to it, and as you go. Let's get to reopening, and let's talk that one through. One, if I were the world's royalty, we would be open right now. So while I'm going to give you the information, I'm frustrated that we're not open at 50% now. We should be. We know that 50% is the safest place to be. December proved that for us again. More and more health officials saying there's no information that 25% is safer than 50 out there. It doesn't exist. So I'm going to tell you where we're at, but that doesn't mean that I'm not fighting like hell or I'm not frustrated that we're not already at 50. That being said, the governor's next scheduled announcement is on the 11th of March. And if he announces something there, that would mean those changes would take effect on the 15th of March. So if I'm adopting a business plan outside of the politics and the work effort going in, the 15th would be the next open mark, and the 11th would be when you would know it. So those are the things that we are trying to beat that time frame to, and trying to get opening even sooner. The numbers are dropping, and we feel really good about that. Matt Brost on our team has become an amateur epidemiologist, which I can finally say that word after 18 months. And we have a good 48 spreadsheets tracking everything we could metric. There's no reason why we shouldn't open at the next announcement, whenever that is. That being said, this week has been a game changer. And so I'm not ruling out that something couldn't happen sooner. It'd be a long shot, but damn it, we're going to take long shots. Biden announced that kind of his Kennedy shot of putting a man on the moon, that we want to have everyone who wants a vaccination have one by the end of May. He announced that yesterday. That has put a lot of states on notice that the president feels like the vaccinations are going to really pick up, and we're going to have, by the end of May, be in a really good shape on vaccinations. That announcement spurred 9 additional states to suddenly announce additional loosening of their indoor dining rules yesterday. So that gives us a lot of ammunition to talk to the governor's office of, like, everyone's moving. Vaccinations are out there. We are becoming such an outlier. Do you really want to be the last state under 50%? Let's have a conversation. Let's move. Let's talk. And then, of course, the J&J announcement on the third vaccination and the improvements in approvals of that vaccination and where that's moving forward, the good results that that's getting. Those are all game changers that have created a window. Window's small. It's a long shot, but every day we're not open is a problem. Every day we're not at 50% is a problem. And so we're going to take every shot we can. So that's the general time frame. That's what I know. The metrics make me feel good. The challenges in moving this governor to get us open make me not want to promise anything other than an absolute commitment to work our tails off to get you open as fast as we can. In addition to the 50%, when the announcement is made, I would anticipate other rule changes being made. We're asking for a later alcohol cutoff time, and I think we want to move as late as back as can get accepted by the governor's office and local health. And so we are asking for a later alcohol time, and that is being working through the negotiation process. There will be a loosening of the group meeting rules and the event rules. Too early to say what those will look like because they are being negotiated by parties and seeing where those are at, but something will get loosened in that arena. And then many of our affiliates are in negotiating some of the indoor entertainment improvements. So I know the bowling proprietors, the events groups, and some of the other folks about other indoor entertainment or events are negotiating some improvements, and they have our full support. Also, the breweries, wineries, and distilleries groups, we're all aligned, but they're having very specific conversations about their segments of the industry, and I'm hopeful most of those will be accepted. It all doesn't mean anything until the governor signs it and we see it posted. So I don't want to get hopes up, but I'm just trying to give you what I know.
So no idea if 50% would also carry over to events and weddings, but you expect movement?
I can't guarantee a thing. If I were to bet $50 right now, I would bet that 50% will be from everyone, but events will have a number cap. I don't know what the number cap is going to be, but I do expect from my general understanding of the conversations and the consistency of everyone we're reaching out to around is that they don't want to have a bunch of different percentages for different industries. They want to get to a singular number that's understood by everyone. So if I were bet $50 right now, I'd bet $50 that events will be at 50% except for a number cap. And the number cap, I think, is a number that's still fluid. I keep hearing different numbers, different days.
Do you anticipate the 6 feet between tables moving?
No. Until we hit herd immunity, I think that one's going to stick.
And Dennis, I will send your number to Anthony.
So Anthony, you mentioned herd immunity. Is that up until you're basically up to 100%?
No. Let's just use Fauci as our guide right now, because I think what he is learning tells us a lot about why I'm a little bit hesitant to use herd immunity as a metric. Fauci has gone from 60% to 90% to 75% to 85% to 65% on what herd immunity is. And to his credit, we've not been through this before, and variants keep changing the numbers. And so it's not like he's wildly guessing because he doesn't know any better. It's just the number's not known, but the concept is there. And so herd immunity, for those who don't know the term, is at what percent of the population, once you've immune them, that the number is now just going to spiral down. We've gotten ahead of it enough, and enough people are done. The virus is going to have a very hard time spreading. And that number is somewhere between 65 and 90%, depending on what science teaches us as we go, and depending on some other things. Now, keep in mind, there's still not a vaccine for kids, and they're not an insignificant portion of our a vaccine that's been approved for kids, and that's not an insignificant portion of our population. So let's pretend herd immunity is 65%, and then we take out all the kids. We're going to have to get a really high percentage of the adults vaccinated to hit that number. But herd immunity is probably the point that when the scientists reach agreement on what the number is, that we will probably 100% and masks and no masks and the 6 feet tables. Those are probably all the things that when that number comes, we're moving. That's why the Biden announcement yesterday was shocking to a lot of people, because he basically is saying, let's get there by the end of May. I love bold leadership. I love the Kennedy shots where they said, damn it, we're going to put a man on the moon. And I think we should have that kind of hope. But I also have that, and I'm trying to run businesses and build financials out. I think that's a very aggressive goal. I want it to come true. Whatever we can do to support that goal, hallelujah. But I would also say if I'm building my business upon it, that's a very aggressive goal. Other questions that are out there, Lisa?
Not just yet. If anybody wants a reminder, if anybody has a question, go ahead and type them into the Q&A and we can do that live.
Again, my cell phone I've kept in the other room this time because so many of you kept texting me questions on that one last several meetings. So I don't know what's said out there.
Anthony, one of the questions that I hear on occasion is, what impact will potential variants have coming? The last thing we want to do is open up our restaurant and all of a sudden we hear about this variant that might have a larger impact on possibly closing us back down. What has been the chatter that you've heard on the Hill in regards to variant impact?
Yeah, well, one, I'm not up on the Hill, so I want to be clear. This is not a legislative insight. If the legislator's talking about it, that's more of a Julia question. I can talk about the conversations I've been around. The epidemiologists are really concerned on the variants, not politically concerned about the variants, not I want to support somebody else, therefore I'm concerned about the variants. When you're on a Zoom and we're waiting for everyone else to come on board, or you follow up with a question, the EPIs are really concerned about the variant. That's why any new metrics that get us open need to be on hospitals and not variants, because new variants occur every day. It's the ones that create a problem that scare us. And so if there's new metrics, they need to reflect that they are creating an increase in hospital stays. And the hospital stays would trigger any changes in future metrics. So Lex, I think that's the way I would answer that one. It is a legitimate concern for people who stare at healthcare numbers consistently. My hope is that given the speed we're getting, there's not been a breakthrough yet, meaning there's not, knock on wood, there's not been a variant who's been resistant to the vaccination yet, and everyone is on watch for that. So as long as that's the case and we get everyone vaccinated, that's why, again, Biden's yesterday announcement, while aggressive, is good news.
All right, it's 10:42. If anybody has any more questions, now's the time to ask.
So again, for those moving forward, we put in there the link to the National Restaurant Association call and the webinar. My guess is if you miss the call tomorrow, you can rewatch it later, right, Lex?
Yes, we'll put a link up to the replay in the. We put together a new group on Facebook. So if you haven't joined it yet, it's a closed Facebook group for association members on it's called Washington Hospitality Association Members Facebook group, and you can find it. I'll be sure to put the link up on that area. And
it's also in the webinar page on our site.
Correct.
So watch that, or whoever does your accounting, watch that, because that's going to come out fast, and that is going to be like the Oklahoma land rush when that opens up. So move forward on that one quickly. Watch your emails and texts from us the next 2 Thursdays. Thursdays have been the timing for those announcements. Let's be hopeful and screw it, right? I can't walk around always being negative all the time. I've just got to say, let's go. Let's be hopeful those things happen. And get your triple P out there as soon as you can. So those are my urgents. I hope everybody does have a good month, because hopefully very soon we can get to 50%. And then we can start talking about how to recover versus just survive. So I'll look forward to that conversation. Good luck, everybody. Thanks for inspiring us to work so hard on your behalf. Good luck.